You're going to be our lead local correspondent on this episode. It's going to be awesome.
I should have went to the pool room for dinner to.
You should have. Take the temperature.
Live on look.
A live look at a community torn asunder.
Well, yeah, certainly. I mean, it was our fault. We made a mistake. Spotter said it was clear. I wasn't clear, and, I didn't want to tear my car up, tear his car up either. I respect everybody, and I demand respect. And, I apologized to the guy when he came over the car, explained to him what happened, and then he took it to another level when he started calling me an idiot and whatever else. And I don't appreciate that. I'm not going to take it. I told him how I feel. I called him out. He didn't show, and so, I'm good with it if he's good with it, but I'm not going to be disrespected by no means.
Yeah, I guess I had a dinner date at Applebee's last night that I didn't find out until it was too late. It's a shame. Love their riblets and boneless wings, but...
Welcome back to Meet Me at Applebee's, your free-form motorsports podcast. That is this week's Not Quite catchphrase. I'm Brian Kay. With me, as always, are my co-hosts, Rob and Ashley. How y'all doing this week?
I'm good. I want to do a little welfare check on old Truliv over here. How's it going down there in old Georgia?
Times are tough here.
Yeah.
Dark ages.
Is the flag at half mast in front of the pool hall or what?
Good question. I need to ride by and go check it out.
Actually, that was going to be a question I had too. Like, what is the temperature at the pool? Did they light white smoke off when they announced Josh Berry like they do for the fucking Pope in the Vatican?
I'm sure it was like some bagpipes playing or something, like a funeral. I don't know.
Yeah.
I need to go by and check on my people.
Yeah. Are they going to start serving alcohol at the pool room now because of this shit?
They need to deal with the grief and depression.
He'll be back. He's fine. He just broke his fibia, if you ask what the internet thinks that bone is called. So, are we just going straight in the dark for the week? Because let's save it, because that's going to be half the episode anyway.
Yeah,
but good Lord. So Vegas, guys, what'd you think? Did you guys stay awake for that?
Barely.
Yeah, it was not an exciting race. It was fine, but it wasn't great.
I actually enjoyed it. It was kind of again, like, I don't want to sit here and bitch about stages like everybody else on the internet, but I feel like that race would have been a lot more interesting if the stages didn't exist, because it definitely was like long run strategy kind of deal going on.
Yeah.
And I think you could have seen something cool happen that wasn't just your classic little green-white checker if those stages didn't exist, but they're not going anywhere, so it's a moot point. No sense in talking about it. But yeah, that was okay, I guess. William Byron winning. That fucking guy, like, anytime it is uncomfortably cold, he's just going to dominate that race.
You're having Martinsville flashbacks.
Oh, absolutely. The whole time I was thinking everyone's in there in parkas and shit, and he's just leading like, 600 laps or whatever it was.
And you mentioned that. Same thing at Darlington last May when it was cold as shit. I mean, he led most of that race, and, he got knocked out of the way by Logano, but, I mean, it was his race for most of it.
Yeah. Maybe he's doing that fucking Liver King ice bath thing, and he just waits for the temperature to drop. As soon as global warming fucks us up a little bit more, he's going to win every damn race, I'm telling you.
I think it's because he stays inside in the AC building Legos all the time.
Yeah, down in the basement. He did learn on a computer, apparently.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, big fucking run for Hendrick, 1, 2, 3. And again, not to keep digging the wound, wound a little deeper there.
The wound was deep. Having to watch a Hendrick dominated race.
But like I was saying to you earlier, I'm sure Alan would have figured out some way to fucking send that car down to the 20s and be separate. But yeah, big day for Hendrick, big day for Chevy, bad day to be a Ford driver. That's pretty much sums it up, I guess.
Really, it's been not a great season to be a Ford driver so far, it seems.
For sure. The veterans are doing okay. It's interesting to see both Brad and Kevin Harvick managing top 10s out of all that, which is, I guess I didn't expect either one of those guys because their teams are not the greatest right now. Roush looking a little bit better than SHR, that's for sure.
I mean, Harvick's been up in the top 10. He was top 10 in California also, I believe.
It's true. He's the only one though. The rest of the guys are just on a raft, and I don't know. it's hard to know what to blame that on. But yeah, not a good day to be fixing or repairing it daily.
Yep. Now, Sunday also was we had two other races. Now we had F1 to start the morning and IndyCar middle of the day. I know Rob watched at least most of the first two races. I was kind of in and out and doing other stuff, but Ashley, did you watch any of this?
I had him on in the background, but I can't say my attention was held very well, especially the F1 race.
Yeah, I mean, F1 is pretty boring, and it's definitely one of the reasons why I've never been a fan. But
folks, when Toto Wolff is walking out of there saying that Red Bull is going to win every race after the first race, it's going to be a pretty grim fucking time for F1 fans this year, I think.
Yeah, it was pretty grim last year. So.
That's fucking wild to me. Again, and we'll get into the perspective of a NASCAR fan compared to other motorsports later in the show, but like that is so crazy to me to think that like one team has so much more money and has put so much more R&D basically, and they just have the best equipment and they're just going to win everything all fucking year. Like that is insane to me.
And just the fact that so much money goes in on the front. Of course, Red Bull got in trouble for that last year. They went over the budget cap, and they tried to blame it on catering, which is fucking hilarious. Anytime I come home with a bigger bill than I should, my wife asked me about it. It's catering is the excuse as well. But yeah, they've got this car they just figured out. And that's the thing. All of the technology is front loaded. They build a brand new car every year. Every single team has their own intellectual property and design, and if you fuck that up at the very beginning, then you are pretty much screwed for the rest of the year. But yeah, for the press to be talking about that within the first 45 minutes of a broadcast, it's just that's not good.
Well, it's not good for viewership.
Ain't good for business. Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like
you almost want commercials. It's the only one that's commercial free.
It almost kind of sounds like it'll just be the the Netflix show is going to be more interesting than the actual fucking racing. Which I mean, again, as someone who doesn't really watch, that kind of sounds like the truth anyways.
They just make shit up anyway, so they would have figured it out anyway.
That's another thing I hear, but IndyCar race that had its chaos also. I mean, again, I was kind of in and out, but I saw the wreck at the beginning and I watched a little bit of it at the gym, so that seemed like a shit show.
Had more action to it.
Oh man, that race was killer. What a great way to open the season for IndyCar. Again, I think I am the IndyCar correspondent here on the show here. But
100%. Yeah.
I'm going to reference an old IndyCar blog called Press Dog. It was a festival of carbon fiber out there. Just guys jumping over each other. Was it Benjamin Peterson just doing his best to pretend he was racing an ARCA and just shot himself over the back of somebody. I forget who it was.
Good, yeah, that was
a couple cars airborne. The leaders taking each other out. Romain Grosjean and Scott McLaughlin doing their best to start a fight with each other, but then they hugged it out at the end. I don't know. It's like they all live in the same dorm or some shit. But it was a hell of a race. I really enjoyed it. I think this year is going to be. I mean, all of these recent IndyCar seasons have been pretty damn good. And I would encourage you all to tune in. One thing, I think I said this to you guys while I was watching the race, and is the difference in coverage. And again, not to harp on television coverage for NASCAR for the third or fourth week in a row. That's not what the show is about. And I don't mean to talk shit too much, but man, what a night and day difference in the style of broadcasting. The IndyCar, you said this yourself, True Love, how informative and well put together and how complex and busy the broadcast is, but you always kind of know what's going on. And if you're not a fan or an avid fan like I am, you still are invited into the world of IndyCar and you can kind of figure out what the fuck's going on. Is that, am I wrong about that?
For someone like me who, I mean, I've watched the 500 every single year of my life, but other than that, I haven't paid much attention until the last few years, but definitely for an indie dunce, it's they explain things well and keep you on top of shit.
Well, there was lots of racing on TV this weekend, but I ended up catching during the work week. Sometimes I have cable news on in the background while I'm doing stuff, and a racing commercial actually caught my eye. This was one that was not shown during any of the racing this weekend, but there was a company called Eurosoft who, I shouldn't say they're a company. It seems like they're some sort of drug or some sort of
Was it
prostate.
Eurosoft or Eurolift?
Yeah.
Eurolift, excuse me. I kept saying
Eurosoft is
When
something
things
else.
Go soft.
Euro.
You need a lift.
So anyways, yes, Eurolift. They had a commercial that featured a scene from looked like a mock-up of some sort of NASCAR Cup race. Now I say that they had a next-gen looking paint scheme wise, a next-gen looking Cup car, but it was very clearly like a Xfinity or like an older generation
Did
car.
they move the number up on that? I missed that.
The number
They
was
did,
that's the thing.
yeah.
The number was moved up, but it still had
Somebody-
5 lugs on it.
Somebody did their research.
Somebody watched one race.
Well, somebody made an ad deck for a Cup team and got denied, so at least they know where the fucking number is supposed to go. That's my guess, but anyway.
So anytime there's a racing commercial at all on TV, it's going to catch my eye, but especially ones that don't feature actual racers in them, which is this one. Now, the commercial shows a driver that is apparently in his 50s in the Cup Series, which at this point doesn't really exist. But he apparently, his crew chief yells at him after he makes his 4th pit stop to take a piss during the race.
4th, y'all.
Fourth. How are we going to win a race if you're stopping a pit all the time?
They didn't even say what stage it was.
Yeah, really.
I like that the team had like their own porta potty that had like the team number on it.
Yeah, that happens. Everybody's got their own. That's part of the cart. It's piss off the back. So at one point, the crew chief is just berating this driver to go get his prostate checked and to try Eurolift to get him back on track, so he doesn't have to make all these goddamn pit stops. And they show a nice montage of like gas going into the car and somebody taking a drink. And the guy goes back into the Euro, and then finally he decides to get it, and it shows him with a checkered flag at the very end of the commercial.
My favorite part of that montage is there's a guy standing there next to a stack of tires, and he's just hosing off the tires with water.
That was part of it. That doesn't happen at all. Nobody washes their tires off.
That's not how you soak tires, folks.
Yep. So, while watching this commercial, I guess the first thing that popped in my head was like, who the fuck directed this commercial? Like, were they directing it for race fans? Because any actual NASCAR fan is just going to, as I'm doing right now, just poke holes in this whole marketing campaign. But then, after thinking about it for another couple minutes, I realized it is not for a race fan. It is just for old people. Because when you think about it, a lot of times when drivers, it doesn't matter what they're driving, get interviewed by people in the media who aren't involved in motorsports, I feel like that's one of the top questions drivers get asked. It's like, do you go to the bathroom in the race car? How do you pee in the race car? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Well, as Tony Stewart proved to us in the 2000s, sometimes you got to shit the race car and you can still get the checkered flag at the very end of the day.
They ain't making commercials about that one, buddy.
Yes, so nobody is stopping to use the bathroom during any races, but
that's one
because that is such a thing that is burned into the general public's mind. I guess that's why they decided to take that route with the storytelling of this commercial.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess it does its job, in that sense. You're maybe not necessarily going to hook the race fans to go to their go see their urologist, but to the general public who only knows NASCAR from like Days of Thunder, maybe that'll actually ring true to them in some sense. So.
Man, I'm still laughing about Tony Stewart showing up to the Victory Lane interview 15 minutes late with a fresh combed hair and a nice polo after just unloading on himself in the race car.
I wish that wasn't during my period of lapsed fandom, because I would have been dying watching that.
That was during my period of where I was a Casey Kane fan and I hated Tony Stewart with a passion. So that made my day.
Hey, at least he still won. So
that's true.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't. It's definitely not for race fans. Again, if they were going to do that, they would have spent the money to throw it on a car. They would have done some sort of at-track activation.
Yeah.
I'm sure Rick Ware needs a few bucks. So I'm sure they would have called them up, and I don't know, maybe Ty Dillon could have driven that thing around. But it doesn't seem like it's for anybody who's ever actually watched a race before. And I hadn't thought of it in those terms. Because I was going to say it kind of reminded me like they just ripped off the first scene at Talladega Nights. Because I think whoever's driving the malt liquor car, or the Dennett car that Will Ferrell ends up jumping in, and You guys have seen the movie. I'm not going to tell you all about it.
That'd
That'd be a pretty funny way to kill a podcast, though, to spend an hour explaining Talladega Nights from memory. But I won't.
We already had to listen to Rob do that with the movie Driven before the podcast.
That's right.
Yeah, to be on the lookout for a watch along of that at some point, because I think we're all going to have to watch that together.
I've got a New Testament's worth of fucking commentary on Driven.
So Ashley, as the first person on the show that's going to be going to a Cup race this year in a few weeks, you give us a report if they've got a kiosk at the track.
Yeah, I'll be on the lookout for Eurolift.
Yeah,
sure.
Tell them to give me a call, because I think I'm in need of that at some point. So
well, we're all about to hit those 50s soon. So.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, I'm about to enter that demographic. So,
yep.
Real quick before we move on, just kind of off the cuff question for you guys: what's your favorite sample of something you've been handed at a racetrack?
Oh man,
see. I'm
gonna say it's Goody's headache powder for me. They hand that shit out at Martinsville on the way in. And Lord knows I needed that after I was done at Martinsville. So that was good activation.
There was one year I went and they had a Spam trailer set up, and you walked through the trailer and they gave you fried Spam. It was the best Spam I've ever had.
The Andy Newsom special.
It was, yeah.
I feel like probably an energy drink or something, but I mean, at the very least, I was around when they were still handing out free cans of chew and cigarettes at races, so I wish I could have taken advantage of that. I was just a little too young, unfortunately.
I'd say the three of those things we just laid out there, that's really all you need on race day. A few cold beers, a pack of smokes.
Headache medicine.
Some goodies for the ride home, and some Spam. That's it.
That's it.
So for the last little bit of news here, we kind of got to go back to a topic that kind of started the show. And Rob, I don't really know how to segue into this, especially since you made the note about it. So I'll let you go and take it away here.
Oh, you mean Chase Elliott, Sonny Bonoing himself in his season? Yeah. So of course, as everybody on Earth knows, Chase Elliott broke his tibia snowboarding in Colorado, which. I guess that's not breaking news. He's an avid snowboarder. I think that's just what he does.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is true or not. I had heard it was actually some sort of like Make-A-Wish actual sponsor function kind of thing, or some sort of corporate deal. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I saw that on Twitter. Who knows if it's true or not, but it doesn't really matter. His legs broke. He's out for 6 weeks. Josh Berry and then Jordan Taylor actually in for one race at COTA, which it makes perfect sense.
Especially with him being involved in that whole Hendrick, what was it? Whatever the hell that project.
Yeah, Garage 56 project for Le Mans. Yeah, I think I was expecting Mike Rockenfeller to be in there. I actually kind of forgot that old Jordan Taylor was also involved in that, because Mike is one of the drivers as well for the 24 hours this year. But
Mike has a Eurolift appointment that week.
He does. He's an old man. So young old Jordan's gonna come in there and he's gonna do it. Honestly, he probably has more experience in a cup car at COTA than anybody else because of the Garage 56 program. So I think even over Josh Berry, I feel like he might have a pretty decent shot of putting on a show in that car. Also, a side note for COTA, Kimi Räikkönen announcing today he's back with Trackhouse for COTA. That's fucking awesome.
It's cool.
Gonna have 2 extra beers during that race for Kimi.
Almost get me to want to go down there. I'm just hoping we get some good Randy Sandstorm content from that weekend, because that would be sure.
Oh yeah.
But anytime Chase Elliott comes up, he's kind of the other version. I was talking about people having anytime Dale Earnhardt gets mentioned on the internet, or anytime NASCAR is mentioned, Dale gets brought up and people have a fucking conniption fit. Chase is kind of the same way. Basically, all those fans from everybody who's retired have now settled on Chase Elliott as the thing they live and breathe for. And, of course, him getting hurt has just opened up a tear in the fabric of time for all the wildest shit you've ever seen on the internet. All sorts of different, the takes you'd sort of expect, like get well soon. That's pretty normal, I guess. I don't mean to demonize people wishing him well. I'm not that much of a Chase hater.
Damn, bro.
to the classic, you deserve it, blah blah blah. And also, a lot of discussion even in the media about, where the line needs to be drawn for these drivers and what they're allowed to do in the off season. And there was a particular post on NBC's, all of their media, but of course, Facebook is where the good comments are. And of course, this is Dart for the Week, folks. Kyle Petty made a comment about how anyone should get a waiver, regardless of the injury, regardless of how they got it, etc. I kind of disagree with that, but that's a whole other discussion. Who gives a shit? But so many dumb ass opinions on this, and our Dart for the Week is a man named Kevin Burke. And there's a few comments like this one, but this particular one really just sort of like encapsulates this idea that Chase Elliott has been fired. Kevin says, it's the ownership that released Chase Elliott. Blame Rick Hendricks. It's his Lowe's loss. Chase Elliott, most popular NASCAR driver, won't have a problem finding a new ride. So
what?
You want me to read it again? I'd spell it for you. That ain't going to help. So there's people who think he's just gone. He just got fired by Rick Hendricks.
I mean,
a quick little aside about this. There are a bunch of comments underneath this one, and they're all like these Russian or just bots of like hot girl bots that he just starts having conversations with underneath that. So it's like even the bot technology is sophisticated enough to pick out a Darth motherfucker.
I mean, yeah. My next
this guy's
comment,
an asshole.
my next comment was going to be about just how illiterate so many NASCAR fans tend to be, and then him getting caught by a Russian bot just plays right into that perfectly. Yeah. I don't know. It's the amount of opinions that have, I don't know if I've necessarily seen that many opinions that are like, he shouldn't have been doing that, blah, blah, blah. Maybe it's just that's the kind of field of vision that I've created for myself as a NASCAR fan, where I thankfully avoid a lot of Darfs as far as when I'm looking at the internet and what I'm looking at.
Me, I love the dumb corners of life.
Trust me, I love those as well. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, I feel like most people that I've seen have had pretty level-headed, comments about this, and like, dude, motherfuckers are risking their lives getting in cars every weekend, and Chase is an experienced fucking snowboarder. How many fucking guys get in sprint cars, which are far more dangerous than cup cars every fucking weekend?
Wasn't it an ATV that Tony Stewart got?
He's ripping a sand rail out there and one of those crazy ass fucking carts, and he broke his back. Yeah.
Dale Jr. told a pretty fair story on this week's episode, the first one of the download, where he talked about how when he first got signed to Hendrick, he went on like some sort of, I don't know, his family or friends trip or something to a ski resort, and he, as a bad skier, wanted to go out, but somebody pointed out like, hey man, you just signed a huge contract, maybe you shouldn't do this. And that's him taking assessment of his risks and also his skill set and realizing, hey, maybe it is a bad idea. Whereas like, Chase has been snowboarding since he was a little fucking kid. And I mean, it's one of those things where, look at Jimmy Johnson too. As a fellow bike guy, Jimmy Johnson was a huge bike guy, and I saw him ripping mountain bikes plenty of times during the Cup season. And it's like, you can get hurt very easily on a bike, even if you're very experienced. So
to bring it back to F1, look at Lance Stroll. He just got hit by a car on a bike, and he drove with a broken arm pretty much. Yeah, it's training in general, anything athletic, which you're encouraged to do, you can get hurt. I don't know. It's I don't really know where I stand on it. I do have a little bit of a problem with somebody getting injured outside of the car and missing races and being able to race for a championship. But I think that's more of a symptom of the actual way we crown a champion versus.
Yeah, I get that because, see, I'm someone who, I can see that side of the argument, but at the same time, when Kyle Busch won his championship after missing 11 races, he had to at least get to a certain level of points to even be considered. And he had to win, and he fucking did it. And you can't argue that. Sure. Like, how amazing would that season have been had he not missed those 11 races? Because he did all that shit in, 15 or whatever it was.
I don't know. Somebody else would have been the champion like they should have been, to be honest with you. But again, that's always been my big problem with the playoffs, and we don't need to get into that. Like, I still watch, so ultimately NASCAR wins.
Yeah.
That shit's not changing anytime soon. So, but it definitely kind of taints it for me a little bit. Like what Kyle in particular did was incredible. And I'm sure Chase is going to come back and he's going to be full of piss and vinegar and he's probably going to pop a few wins off as well. I have faith in that, especially with how good the Chevys are looking right now. But I don't know. It just seems like you miss half the season or you miss a large chunk of it. You shouldn't be rewarded for that because you decided to step out of the realm and you don't decide to get hurt, but like life happened and you're not in the car anymore. But that's the sort of crux of my opinion. I feel like if you miss races, you miss races, and that's just the way it is for any reason. And if you really need NASCAR to give you a little gimme to get back in, then I'm sorry, like you didn't complete all of the work to win the fucking championship. But that's just me. I also understand where people are coming from on the flip side, so that's not an argument I want to get into with anybody by any means, but this is how I feel.
Well, you just fucking did, pal.
I'll be right back.
What are you doing?
I gotta hit the bathroom right now.
Again? That's your fourth time this race. Since you hit your 50s, that enlarged prostate has you going frequently.
Yeah, day and night.
It's time to take care of number one. Ask your urologist about the Urolift system.
Urolift? That a European tire jack?
No. Urolift is an outpatient procedure that reopens the channel to increase flow. It can help you empty your bladder so you can stay on track. That track.
And reduce our pit stops.
Yes. Get fast symptom relief while preserving sexual function. With no cutting.
Call 800-811-4800 or visit Eurolift.com.
Most common side effects are temporary and can include discomfort when urinating, urgency, inability to control the urge, pelvic pain, and some blood in the urine. Rare side effects, including bleeding and infection, may lead to a serious outcome and may require intervention.
Stop less and take care, number one, with Urolift.
Yeah, I don't care enough to like fly off the handle on Facebook and just blindly type whatever comes out and hit send without reviewing it. I'm not that mad about it. Like our friend Kevin here. Kevin Berg, our Dar for the week. Congratulations, buddy. You have earned yourself 5 minutes on the old smoking crate out behind your local Dollar General. So
He'll never hear this unless one of the Russian bots tells him.
Yeah, maybe we should hire some bots to scoop some of these folks up and get them to listen. By the way, a little bit of housekeeping for the show here. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcast, congratulations. You found us on here. But if you're a listener who prefers that platform and you're listening on Spotify or Anchor or somewhere else, we are now live on pretty much anywhere you can get podcasts. I think we're on Stitcher, definitely Apple Podcasts, iHeart, all that bullshit. We're everywhere now. So if Spotify is not your bag, don't worry. We're everywhere now. So you can find us on there, like the show, give us a rating, whatever all the stuff you do for podcasts is. But yeah, just a little heads up for all the listeners out there. We are finally able to be listened to anywhere you want. So
that's the Darf segment of the week. Now moving on to our final regular segment, the video of the week. Normally, this is, at least in the past few weeks, this has been my section of the show more or less. But this week, due to the beginning of the IndyCar season, Rob ended up essentially picking the video, and I'm going to let him take this section away because I've got plenty to say about it, but he's the one with the real knowledge. So, Rob, all you.
Well, I wouldn't say I got that much knowledge, but I will talk about this. A good buddy of ours, or a new good buddy, I suppose, one whose name I forgot to write down before the show, but a listener. A listener who happens to work in the Fox production side of things in the robotic camera division. So all that work is done by our friend here. And I guess as they're getting set up, they'll put on an old race in their booth. And they happen to, per our suggestion the other week, put on the 2015 race at Fontana. Of course, that's, in my opinion, the greatest, at least modern IndyCar race of all time. And he asked us, hey, what should we watch next week when we're getting set up? And the first thing that came to mind for me was the 1993 New England 200. It's a kart race. Kart, of course, being the ultimate iteration of IndyCar. Back in, I guess it started in the late 70s and went all the way to about the mid-90s when the big split happened. Again, that's a whole other 3 hours I'll go off on. But this race is widely regarded as one of the greatest American open-wheel races of all time. It's just 1993, and we were talking about this before the show, Brian, 93 was just such an insane pinnacle year for racing in general.
Mm-hmm.
everywhere you turn, there are just legends and superstars. You can't turn around without hitting one. This race, of course, had Mario Andretti in one of his last years. Emerson Fittipaldi's still out there driving for Penske. Al Unser Jr. is out there. Paul Tracy in his first full season. I believe this was considered his rookie season. He ran a few races in 92, but he's out here and he puts on one hell of a show with Scott Goodyear. One thing I immediately noticed about this, and again, the link I'm going to post is actually I think it's a tape delay version of the broadcast. You can find the full 3-hour broadcast out there, but this is the tape delay that we're going to post. It's about 1 hour and 20. Nice little economical video you can watch. But the first thing that really caught my attention about this was just how tight and concise the intro is. Again, they've got probably a 90-minute window to fit this race in, maybe a little bit longer. And Paul Page just informs you on what has happened in IndyCar and what has happened leading up to this race. And you are as well informed as you are from any other 2-hour pre-race show within about 3 minutes. And it really kind of put into perspective just how protracted and ad-driven all of the broadcasting is now, because you just get 3 minutes of Paul Page laying knowledge on you. And by the way, Paul Page is probably my favorite commentator of all time. I could listen to that guy talk for days on end and not get bored about it. Have not read his book yet though, but I hear it's incredible. But yeah, just you get an intro to just how special this time of racing is in the first couple of minutes, and it's straight into the green flag. Maybe a couple pace laps straight into the broadcast. You get to see an amazing battle. Actually, before I get to Paul Tracy and Scott Goodyear putting on a show, I guess the Cup Series had been at Loudon the month before, excuse me.
Yep.
This is the race where the racetrack came apart.
Yeah. Now I know at this point, I mean, that New Hampshire track was only like 2-3 years old. It was pretty. The
young, oval was brand new. Yeah. So Breyer was the name of the racetrack before it became Loudon or New Hampshire International, but it was a road course, Busch North race there. The Busch Series came there a few times. But yeah, the oval itself, I think, was built in 87 or 88. And this was sort of the beginning of big time racing coming through. So,
and in 93, again, that was the first Cup race. I mean, they'd raced Busch North there prior, because I guess that's what was popping into my head when they got to that portion of the broadcast where they were talking about how they fixed the sections that were broken by the Cup cars and they put lime down to speed up the curing process. And
it's like I guess reverse PJ1. It just made it slick as fuck.
my first thought was was the weight? Is it the weight of the Cup cars what fucked the track up? But then it's I realized Busch North had been there prior to the Cup cars getting there, and they didn't fuck the track up, right? So I guess I was a little confused. I mean, I was watching racing then, but I was still very young, so I don't totally remember why the track broke up like that.
That's a good question. I mean, I would imagine it has something to do with just the length of the race.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess that's true. Also,
it's also the dead of summer. Also, that's the last race that Davey Allison ever won before he tragically passed away around this time.
Well, no, you ever entered. Never. He didn't win that. Rusty Wallace won the race.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Yeah, the NASCAR tore the track up. They fixed it by tearing turn 1 up and putting new asphalt down and sealing it with lime. So it just looks like the Mass Pike up here in the middle of winter. It's just this giant white stripe at the bottom of the racetrack, and it's very treacherous, but it doesn't seem to matter to these guys. They're just ripping it. It's still sliding around. A lot of passing lap traffic, 3 wide, which you will not see at Loudon anymore. I don't think you've ever seen that in a Winston Cup car. That's for sure.
Not in the turns. That's for sure.
Yeah, but this whole race is just magnificent. And again, the hour version really it sucks. Some things get missed in the edit, but overall you get an idea of just how intense this race was. Hiro Matsushita is in this race. King Hiro. He was a Japanese driver from around that time, had some big backing from Panasonic, but unfortunately he wasn't good. But as a kid growing up, they always called him Hiro Matsushita on the broadcast. And it drove me crazy. I don't think that's how you pronounce his name. And as I got older, for all these years, I've just carried the fact that Paul Page could never say his fucking name right. And anytime I watch an old IndyCar race, it just pissed me off. I was like, come on, Paul, you're better than this. I just sat here and, sucked off the idea that Paul Page is the greatest announcer of all time for 5 minutes. But he can't say this poor Japanese man's name correctly. And then I just happened to catch this offhand. I think I was texting you guys as I was watching this, and I heard him explain in this broadcast, he goes, so yeah, we got a correction from the booth a couple weeks ago here. We were calling you Hiro Matsushita, as you see it spelled, but they asked us to pronounce it Matsushita, so that's why we're doing that. And they went right back into the accent, and it was just God himself was just telling me to go fuck myself. Have faith in Paul Page. He was right. It blew my mind because I've been walking around for like almost 30 years now thinking that no one can say this poor dude's name right. But apparently that's how they wanted it pronounced, just incorrectly. So, but what do I know? I don't speak Japanese. But another funny moment here, and not to get too into open wheel history and all that, but Dave Kurjave, he wrecks. He's driving the Euro Motorsport car, which happened to have some ties with the Andrea Moda brand, and by proxy, the Formula One team. Google Andrea Moda Formula One if you want to hear the most dysfunctional story of a racing team in history. It's fucking hilarious. There's books about it. There's probably a few YouTube series about it now, but it's definitely, you want to see how not to do it, check out the Andrea Moda story. But they're actually sponsoring this car, and the car is painted just like the Andrea Moda Formula One car, and it ends up basically in the same spot, back into the fence here. But yeah, this race, again, like I said, there's not too much else to say about it. Nigel Mansell, of course, comes out and wins. This is his rookie season. He's the defending Formula One world champion at the time. And he came in and kind of whooped everybody in kart's ass, but not without Paul Tracy and Emerson Fittipaldi trying to have something to say about it. If you have time to watch this entire season, it is absolutely incredible racing. Of course, the split was already sort of brewing in the background. I mean, that, I guess, Indycar splitting from USAC and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway was always sort of in the background, even from the first time things split up in the 70s, and it never really totally healed. But yeah, even with that sort of lingering in the background, like this, sort of looking back and knowing that this is the absolute top of the mountain is it's a fascinating watch. So if you've never watched IndyCar before, I would say this is a pretty damn good place to start. Is in 1993 in particular, and maybe this race here at Loudon.
It's definitely as an IndyCar novice, it is a great place to start. I mean, New Hampshire was essentially my home NASCAR track as a kid, so I was pretty familiar with the track itself. I'm almost sure that my uncle was actually at this race. He was a big Paul Tracy fan way back in the day, and it is so startling to, especially I'm sure, some younger folks really don't know Paul Tracy's full history. And there's probably some people that only know him really from SRX, and to look at him now compared to what he looked like and acted in 1993,
them big old fucking glasses,
like just two complete different fucking people.
Okay. I will say that I am one of those people who only really know Paul Tracy from SRX. And
See,
so I hate him in SRX. I hate him.
As you should.
But then watched him in this race. I was like, who the fuck is this guy?
Yeah.
See, my uncle who was the Paul Tracy fan, looked a lot like Paul Tracy.
Well,
more like similar glasses, but smaller.
Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah, man, I love how all the old IndyCar guys of this era all had those big old fucking round glasses. Like Bobby Rahal had them too. Just those big old grandma kind of glasses. For whatever reason, that was just the fashion. I think Brian Herta had them too. Maybe Rahal just made his guys wear them. I don't know.
I thought it was interesting how they talked about how good Mansell is, because this was ended up being his third straight oval win in his rookie season.
Yep.
And he even talked about at the end how even though he'd won 3 in a row, like the anxiety from racing on ovals was still there. And it's
he got hurt pretty severely at Phoenix. I think he had a broken vertebrae or something.
Oh, okay.
I forget. He got seriously injured and missed the Phoenix race, and that was his first time on an oval. And of course, very similar enough to the racing you see at Milwaukee and here in Loudon. So yeah, he was probably on a razor's edge a little bit, but still.
Makes total sense. I thought it was interesting, and I'm sure probably at some point back in the day, this type of stuff happened in NASCAR, but was it Raul Boesel? At the very beginning, they're showing his car while he's still on pit row, and they had blankets over, there were deflectors over parts of his car, and they didn't want other teams to see that. And that was one of the numerous things as far as comparing IndyCars and NASCAR, how teams could run different wing setups if they wanted to. Teams could do weird shit like that. Teams could run different wheels.
Yep.
I thought that all that stuff was very interesting, how it was way more individualized with the teams as opposed to NASCAR where everything's pretty much uniform.
Yeah, well,
and at least the stuff that isn't uniform, you don't really see. I definitely thought it was very interesting that both Ari Leindyke and Danny Sullivan, who are both, were pretty much legends then in IndyCar, they both pulled out with handling problems, and their car just wasn't drivable. And, I know on one hand, the point structure in IndyCar is much different, and only, X amount of cars actually got any sort of points for finishing.
Right.
So in that sense, I guess I understand that, the car is too dangerous to drive and blah, blah, blah. But on the other hand, if you're a paying sponsor and your car is not on the track, like that's kind of an annoying thing. I thought it was interesting how the a lot of the lap cars didn't really get out of the way from the guys fighting for the win.
No, they didn't.
Which again, if that was to happen in NASCAR, again, that driver that was in the way of a battle like what we saw at the very end of that race, that driver would be fucking crucified.
Well, one interesting thing about this race is that it's very old school in the sense that I believe there's only 3 cars on the lead lap at the end of the race.
I think either 3 or 4. Yeah, it was very few.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of yielding to lap traffic. It definitely was and still is obviously the sort of the way to be. You want to get out of the way if you can, but these guys are not going to give an inch if they know they have a chance to move up one position. So
yeah. The other thing, going back to coverage, and again, this is being that this was the tape delayed footage. It still seems weird that this wouldn't make it to the race. But at one point, Scott Goodyear apparently gets wrecked by Mario Andretti. And there was, Scott Goodyear at that point, I think he was still on the lead lap. He was 3 laps ahead of Andretti. Scott Goodyear calls it one of those racing deals, and they never interview Mario. They mentioned on the broadcast that Mario just went back to his trailer. They never showed the wreck. And, for something like that to happen,
yeah, it's a pretty big fucking deal.
Yeah. I have the race on in the background right now watching it, and they're at the wreck right now, and it's just
they never show
the cars. No, the car is just sitting there. Yeah.
Just all of a sudden there's a caution and there's a car in the wall, and then Andretti's car's kind of fucked up, and that's it. That's all they show.
That's kind of the story of Scott Goodyear's career right there. He's kind of the quintessential bridesmaid, and he almost gets the attention, and then it just gets brushed under the rug,
Yep.
Almost wins the 500, but doesn't. So, or USAC takes it away from him. But that's a whole other rant.
But yeah, this was a great suggestion for Rob. As Ashley and I being really not huge IndyCar fans, I think it was a really good, fun race to watch. And I don't know if I'll ever really get sucked into IndyCar, but I definitely feel like this year I'll probably watch a little bit more and pay attention to it a little bit differently. Because of this and just other stuff you've kind of been sending along.
And of course, I'll be talking about IndyCar in here a little bit as the year, especially when the month of May comes around. Oh my God, you're gonna get so fucking tired of me talking about.
Yeah, I'm sure we're gonna have a bunch
of speeds and who's running in quali trim and what kind of boost people are running. Yeah, it's gonna be fucking terrible for you listeners, but I don't care. God damn it, it's the month of May.
Thank God it's only March.
There's part of me that wants, so I really don't have a huge desire to go to the oval race, any oval race in Indy, because going to the track, you won't be able to see shit. You can only see part of the track, which is annoying to me as a fan. But also there is a massive, massive, massive motorsports collectible show that happens Indy 500 weekend, and part of me wants to go there this year for that. So if I do that, I'll have to go to the race.
I mean, there's so much shit going on at IRP and Anderson and all these tracks around there, like the little 500 and all that. There's so much happening that even if the 500 is, just one thing you do, or even if you don't go to the Indy 500, which I don't know why you wouldn't if you're in town, but there's happening that weekend that you can find some great racing to watch, even if the 500 isn't the pinnacle of it. Because again, you're right; it is tough to see there. I've never actually been, but I know for a fact that
I mean, my friend Greg and I, we went to the triple header weekend a few years ago and again, that's road course, but we plan on going again this year because I actually really enjoyed that experience.
Yeah.
Where we were at, we were able to see very well, but as far as the oval, it's like, man, I've been to a lot of tracks, and I feel like the field of vision as a fan there is probably one of the worst anywhere, which is crazy to think about being such a famous track, but it is what it is, I guess.
It's fucking huge though, man. It's
it is insane.
Goddamn
like
golf
the grounds,
course.
Yeah, the grounds are insane. Like it's I've been to, like I said, a lot of tracks and nothing like it at all. So that was video of the week, and who knows what we'll have next week. I'm trying to think, when's Atlanta? In 2 weeks? I've put Ashley on assignment to find some Atlanta clips, but
well, hey,
speaking of IndyCar, it's next week.
Okay.
Speaking of IndyCar, there are some old Atlanta races from the early kart days.
No.
YouTube.
No. Sorry, folks. We're taking a break from IndyCar next week.
That's fine.
We're taking a break from IndyCar in general for like a month. The schedule is so fucked up.
Oh yeah, that's true.
We got NASCAR racing next weekend in Phoenix.
We do. Back to the season finale home, I guess. I don't know what you want to call it.
Earth.
I don't know. I'm sure it'll be a decent weekend.
Well, new short track package being tried out for the first time. They are bringing the rain tires and the fucking mud flaps with the girls' bikinis on them and fucking Yosemite Sam. And windshield wipers. Now, I don't know for a fact if the windshield wipers have to be installed at all times or it's an adjustment a team can make if rain comes, but that'll be interesting to see. But yeah, different aerodynamics. They've removed some of the elements from the bottom of the car and the diffuser to sort of hopefully loosen the cars up a little bit and get some better racing. 2-inch spoiler, all that shit. So I don't really know what we're going to see, to be honest with you, because I think we all agree it hasn't been great at Phoenix.
Nope.
Well, I will.
Not a track I look forward to.
I will say that I have a feeling they're not going to be running any of the wet weather shit because as of right now, as of recording time, there is 0 chance of rain throughout the entire weekend.
Like
so
84 degrees and sunny.
There's 0 chance of race either.
No, because it's Phoenix.
Well, at this point, I'm hoping for a decent race. I'm hoping I continue my streak of, to get back to my betting report. Kyle Busch did not win me any triples over the weekend. Like he did win me $20 on the truck race, which was expected. And I at least covered my bets on Sunday, but that's it. I didn't win shit all weekend. So as long as I come up on top in the black, I'll be happy.
Yeah, I mean, things are looking pretty good for me up until the last 10 minutes of that race, and then everything fell apart. But
I will admit I was able to bet on Byron in the second stage, and the odds were very not great, but I still at least again covered all my bets. Putting a late bet on Byron, so that helped. I don't know. I'm interested to see how the new package works out for the cars. I'm hoping it has to do something different. I mean, it has to make some improvement on some level.
Yeah. At any rate, again, I think you kind of alluded to this a minute ago, but no matter what happens, it is going to be interesting to see just exactly what these cars are going to be looking like at Phoenix. It's definitely going to be sort of a recon run for everybody, I suppose, trying to figure out this new package. This is most likely what they're going to be running at the end of the year. I guess NASCAR could make a rule change if this is total shit, but I don't know. Anytime you take away downforce,
so.
Yeah, exactly. But anytime you take away downforce, you assume it's going to help, especially in a situation in a track like Phoenix. But so this is going to be an interesting little window into seeing just what championship weekend might look like a little bit. It's too early to make any wild predictions, but who do you guys got for this weekend?
Not Josh Berry.
I'm going Chastain. I think Chastain's been running hot all year, and he's got to get one sooner than later. So I'm going to go Chastain. Why not?
Yeah, that's a pretty safe bet, honestly. I might back you up on Ross Chastain there. I think it's he. Who was it? Hang on, give me 1 second here. We might have to edit this out because I'm pulling up stats live here. But somebody has, I think it's Alex Bowman actually who has finished in the top 10 every single race this year. Yeah, it's Bowman.
Well, yeah, he's been doing real good too.
Everyone shits on Alex Bowman.
Not me. I'm a Bowman guy.
Bowman the showman.
But he's really he's a quiet shower. That's for damn sure. But yeah, I was surprised to find out he's really high up in points. I believe he's second right now.
His odds are still not that great, so he's plus 1,800. So I'm putting $5 on him down right now.
And he's pretty good at these flat tracks, man. His record doesn't always show, but I've seen him get around New Hampshire in a pretty impressive way, especially with no practice. He filled in for Dale when he first got concussed a few years ago.
I also watched him get annoyed with a track safety guy who fell on his ass.
The fire extinguisher shot everywhere. That was right. Yeah, that was the funniest I've ever seen at the racetrack. But
I watched that live. I was watching that live that day, and I was like, "Oh my god, I couldn't stop laughing."
But yeah, kind of hard to root against the Hendrick guys. You know, I think any one of them. I don't know. Shit, even Josh Berry, at least for a top 10, he'll figure it out.
Yeah,
it's just a little more his speed. But yeah, I kind of got to go with you, Brian. I think Chastain is a guy to watch, and yeah, I'd even say Suarez. He's been sniffing around the top 10 too, and all they got to do is stay up there and stay in the mix. And one of these days, it's going to fall to you. So, I think I'm going to stay on the Trackhouse hype train.
How about you, Ashley? Nobody?
No. I'm
cool.
I got nothing.
David Reagan.
I mean, I just dread Phoenix. I just want to skip over this weekend. So.
Well, you got 6 weeks without a driver. Who are you going to pull for him this time?
Well, I had to bump my number 2 driver, Bubba, up to P1.
I mean, hey, you better watch out for Bubba, too. He's actually got a pretty decent average finish at Phoenix as well. And 2311, particularly his car, seems to have a little bit of something going on. So that could be.
Yeah, I think it could happen.
It could be. Probably not, but it could be.
We'll see. All I know is two Fords won Phoenix last year, and that's not going to happen this year.
No, probably not. 2 Fords don't make her right. So.
Well, thanks all for tuning in again to Meet Me at Applebee's. We'll be back next week to catch you up on all that happens over the weekend. And as always, you can follow us at Meet Me at DeBees on Twitter and Meet Me at Applebee's on Instagram. I am at Speedway Screens on everything and speedwaytsj.etsy.com for your NASCAR and motorsports memorabilia.
Woo-hoo! And by the way, Brian just dropped some hot IndyCar shit up on Speedway Screens, so check that shit out. I think those are probably just a little bit too small for my fat ass, but I'm telling you, if you like Ari Lyondike, I got a shirt for you over at Brian's place.
Yeah, that shirt's badass. Nobody's bought it yet, so it's all yours.
Hell yeah. Well, my name's Rob. You can find me at RobMotes_unofficial on Instagram. That's about the only thing I fuck with, but I am on Twitter too once in a while. Maybe I'll start talking shit. And by the way, if we want you to talk to us. It helps us out. We like to have a rapport with the fans, you know. And again, the video of the week that came out of one of y'all saying what's up to us. So if you got something to say, please hit us up in the comments. There's a little thing on Spotify. You can send us questions, say hi, or just hit us up wherever you can, because we'd love to talk to you. This is all about making friends, and we're not afraid to talk back at you. So come say hi to us.
And Ashley, your plugs.
Oh, God.
Come on, you should have these down by now. Come on.
I'm going to have to hire somebody.
Yeah, we're just going to hire Rob to do it.
My name's Ashley. And you can find me at the Dawsonville pool room crying with my neighbors. Snake Mountain Goods on Etsy, right?
Yeah, weeping into my bully burger. Yeah, Snake Mountain _true love.
Thanks for listening, and we will definitely see you next week, and we'll tell you how well we napped during this cup race coming up.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks, y'all. Have a good one.
Yep. Namaste, guys.